statement that these issues are very difficult to talk about, and however, we're having the conversation. How do you create a safe space for these conversations with challenging complacency?
That is, it is a challenging question, and it also touches on what I mentioned earlier about the notion of privacy. We live in a fantastic time and a very dangerous one because we are so open now in ways that we weren't even a decade ago. It used to be that you could be online, anonymous, have an identity there, walk away, and still have your real life. Now, online life is compulsory for a lot of us. It is tied into your livelihood and your identity, and it can also become a very real threat. When I was younger, the internet was not mainstream. Stupidity was not recorded. Everyone has a dumb moment in life. Now there's a record of it. That one moment follows you and it can haunt you indefinitely. And that includes the trauma that you've experienced. And I bring the conversations up because my whole existence is an uncomfortable conversation. I was an unwanted child because I was removed from a home for severe neglect. But my biological parent was an exotic dancer. My whole existence is on this whole line of morality that we pretend in all societies regarding women and children, regarding what it means when the bachelor party is over, regarding child abuse, foster care, the sex industry, prostitution, and all of these very uncomfortable words that we don't like to say in polite company, like child marriage. There's so many other people like me who are out there who have had an experience that puts them so far removed from everyday conversation that privacy is a real issue for them right now. I don't watch 9/11 footage because I can see my coworkers running past the cameras. No one asks what that's like when you're attached to a tragedy like this, only if it's going to make their career larger or their byline larger or it's entertainment for other people. But to actually be attached to one of these things and watch your life up in these cameras this way, that's an uncomfortable conversation. And we're not having those conversations because it is easier to pretend that the person that you watched on TikTok who just had their life ruined in 5 seconds won't be you. We don't want to have those conversations because some of us would like to be like Nicole Kidman's character in The Perfect Couple on Netflix, where these dancing skeletons are in the closet and we're just praying no one ever finds them because we have the perfect life. The idea of safe space has been obliterated by the internet. You can be bullied by someone who doesn't even live in your country. So for us, the safe space is not online, it's not a physical room, it's the art. The arts are the safe space because artists create golden ages. Time after time, culture after culture, spreading the literature, spreading the art, spreading the goodwill, spreading the good cheer, because creatives come from all walks of life, and they're usually the most marginalized, the most bullied, and the most unwanted. And for that reason, artists create collaborative societies where people are accepted by default. What I'm asking for with the 34 Gallery Initiative is for our global artists to create a global safe space, a global golden age, where we can all have the tool of self expression instead of self annihilation. And that maybe if we can reach across the table and recognize the creative spirit in each of us, that the rest of the problems will be reduced. And instead of asking where the safe space is, we've automatically created one. For people to take a moment and recognize that the people that are on our screens who are suffering are just like us. They're going through the same struggles, the same issues, and we can all express that beautifully, or we can keep destroying things. It's a matter of choice. So I don't really have a problem having uncomfortable conversations because I had to spend a good chunk of my life pretending that I am not linked to an entire world that nobody wants to acknowledge or talk about. And I know even now in certain circles, if they knew I had a biological parent that way, societal gatekeepers who would not want me at their table. I've suffered all my life because I'm neurodivergent and I was unwanted. Those people who are in similar situations and can't speak, then I'll try to speak for them and make sure that they get heard.
Yay, men. Yay, men for you. Yay, men for the work that you're doing. And I have so much respect for you. And thank you so, so much for being the voice. It's like you're the voice for the survivor needs to reclaim their narrative. I mean, that's essentially that's what you're doing right now. So, whoosh, thank you.
I know it's a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, okay. So let's bring it back to, all right, what do you think about the government and institutions? What do they need to do? And how do they need to play in this? What's their role? Where do you think they fall short? Because you know they do. I know they do. What can we do? What do we do? How do we get the government to uh, change this? And I got to say that the very little bit of time that I've been able to play a part with the 34 galleries, Simuka, and UN, the very little bit that I've done, the question in the back of my mind is always, who's going to see this? And is this going to lead to any impactful change between governments?
Okay, so that's let me clear my throat to get into that one. Okay.
It's a hard one because
It,
there's
it is.
right?
It is.
Visibility is everything, but this is like that thing that is always in my mind, like, and even as a creative, it's most of the work that I do. It's like, okay, so who's going to see this, and are they really going to care? And the people that I want to see this are those that are leading governmental policy makers. I hate to say the P word, but politicians. It's like, when are we going to get eyes and actually do an impactful change that actually assists for situations of human trafficking, rape, domestic violence? Like, when is there going to be an actual, look at this platform and say, oh my goodness, we need to pay more attention here. Perhaps even if it's just we need to throw more dollars over here so that these situations actually get some sort of rectification and rejuvenation of change. So gosh, I'm so sorry to be so passionate about it, but like it's been a
No, not
question.
at
It's been a question on my mind, and I know that you all are doing so much. All anybody has to do is just drive over to the website just to see everything that you all have done, and know that, man, that's like, okay, well, where can I jump in? Like, how can I assist? Do I become a pen pal? Do I?
the first two things in the immediacy. How can someone get involved? If you go to 34gallery.org, we have monthly open calls, which are featured on hug.art and also with Art Jobs, which is based out of the European Union. Those open calls are all mental health based. Our judges go through and they select 20 artists to feature on social media every single month so that everyone can have self care tips and be motivated to live a beautiful life despite everything that they're going through. So, super positive. Everyone loves those opportunities. Now, then we go back over to outreach through simukaafrica.org. So currently we have our Letters to Zimbabwe program. What's happening on site is that the kids feel forgotten in the Norton region in the digital age. They feel invisible, as if the world doesn't even know that they exist, particularly if they're suffering this way. A lot of people are unaware, but East and Southern Africa have been hit by a devastating drought, climate change, which has killed in some places over 75% of the crops. The agricultural sector is really hurting. In this deficit, there is a food and hunger crisis. So the Letters to Zimbabwe program asks the public to directly send aid to Zimbabwe, care packages, food supplies, water supplies, or just a letter to a child saying that they matter. These kids love to get mail, to be able to see that someone in France or someone in Germany or the United States or the UK or over in South America, these exotic places, that they've managed to just send them a letter as a pen pal, a real letter, an actual tangible letter. So this initiative is being led by 34 gallery artist Chanel Julia Rosita, and she is so brilliant. Her artwork is award winning. She also has an article with us regarding how to apply for artist residencies. A lot of our artists will write features and interludes telling our young people how they can attain art careers so that their passion for creating art can also transition into an income or a side hustle for them in conjunction with what they're already doing. And even if you're not actively being involved, actively donating, actively creating art, just following the social media and talking about it word of mouth does wonders. What can governments and all of these policy makers and the politicians do? My honest opinion is that the silent partner in all of the chaos that's going on is about to force humanity's hand, and that is the earth. There's not going to be a choice about having these conversations very, very shortly. United Nations Agenda 2030 was created because the global community recognized that climate change was going to be catastrophic after the year 2030 in all sectors. And because the climate change was going to impact agriculture, to industry, to the cultural dynamics, they created this agenda for the nations to get on board early and try to put fail safe measures in place and infrastructure in place to deal with the dwindling resources that are on this planet. It is now 2025. A lot of the reports that we've been seeing in the past 18 months say that less than 20% of the sustainability goals have been met. And Agenda 2030 ends in 2030. I don't know if you've noticed, but we have boiling seas now, and that wasn't supposed to happen until 2037. These wildfires that we're seeing that are so blazing out of control, that also wasn't supposed to happen until 12, 15, 20 years from now. We're seeing the things that were predicted to happen later in this century happening today. Cognitive dissonance can only last so far with this conversation. And that's what I think the issue is. It's not that we don't know, it's that we want to pretend that we don't. There's these research studies that are claiming that human beings are not having a drastic impact on the planet. Our satellite photos, when the Earth revolves around the sun, half of it is facing away from the sun, correct? And it's dark, but it's lit up by an entire network of lights. There is no other planet in our solar system that has been terraformed this way. So to say that human beings are not having an impact on the planet when we have literally lit it up this way makes no sense. And it's getting to the point where we have to have the discussion about where women and children are in that, because you cannot restrict women's rights when women are going to be needed to solve this problem. The current things that are happening on the planet were not created by women or children. Women and children did not write these policies. They were not part of the conversation. They were not in these boardrooms. The question which we are starting to hear now is there a different way? Yeah, there is. There is a different way. Maybe it's time to try something different now, to let other voices come forward and speak. Because what we're seeing globally, these are resource wars. Resource wars come down to one thing for humanity. Humanity is always talking about who is more worthy of the resources. It doesn't matter if whether we're talking about race or culture or gender or any of these things. The question is who is more worthy of the resources. That's what all of this is about. As a neurodivergent person, the conversation makes no sense to me. If we are all Homo sapiens, we are worthy of these resources. We are here. We can share. We can figure it out. And the other thing that's going to become readily apparent is the pandemic. We have evolved with enough technology and knowledge that a pandemic hit humanity and barely made a dent in our population. If you rewind the clock 100 years, how many millions of people would have died from COVID? We obviously have evolved to the point where war and conflict are optional now. I think people aren't realizing they're optional because they're still on the table. Humanity is going to be forced to change with it. But there are many organizations that are working tirelessly to really figure out how to combat this rollback of rights for women and children that has been happening in the last 10 years, because the idea seems to be restricting the women will somehow make this prosperity thing work, and it's just simply not going to happen. The best advertisement that we have for change is for successful women to be visible, to be vocal, and to be present. We don't have to start a conflict, but we do need to stand our ground, and we need to say what it is that we're fighting for. We're fighting to be equal humans. We're fighting for our children to have a future where they don't have to wonder if they're going to survive. That's the conversation that we need to be having, because the changes on the earth affect everyone. And until the rhetoric is removed and we're looking at this in the same way that you created this really wonderful piece for us, we have to be one world, okay? We have to be on one beat. We have to have one love, all of us collectively. And that's going to take some doing, because the tribalism and the culturalism and all of these little things that are dividing us, the earth is going to render that pretty mute very soon. So I wanted to put it this way because a lot of people, especially since November, have been very hopeless in a political sense about the coming changes, and that there isn't any way that we can possibly overcome the challenges that are coming, that people are going to be silenced and people are going to suffer. What I say to that is, it's 4 a.m. across the world right now. It's always dark at 4 a.m., but the dawn is coming. You hold on. You just have to hold on. The darkness only wins in this world when we believe that it's all powerful. The biggest energy source that we have is the sun. It rises without our say so. So if there's a sun every single day that is this high power that's right there, a tangible example that the light can definitely do anything, I don't think the darkness should be allowed to win within any of us. We have our own lights. The powerless individual is a myth, it's a construct for complacency. I think women need to stop being complacent. And I think that we need to be visible, we need to be here, and we need to stand our ground. Being polite isn't necessarily going to get us through this, but stating who we are, what we need, and what our future needs in plain language definitely will.
Statement that these issues are very difficult to talk about, and however, we're having the conversation.